Hey guys, Sharp Corners for Kids here, coming at you with another deck tech. This is Blue-Black Heartless Summoning. Now, a lot of people don't run this deck because they feel that it relies too heavily on one card, but if you play the deck right, I mean, a lot of the time you don't even need the Heartless Summoning. So, this deck's pretty much pre-Dark Ascension, so a lot of people now are running Have and Go Lick, and also, Perilous Mirror in their decks, things like that. I decided to take a blue-black, mostly artifact aspect of it, a little aggro, top-end aggro, so it's a little bit hard to deal with. This deck playtests pretty well. I played against a mirror match with the green-black Heartless Summoning that used Glissa and, lots of Worm Coil engines and things like that. Didn't stand up too well against this deck, pretty much slaughtered that one. But I tested this deck against my Pox deck, against Rug deck. Rug gets a little bit of a hard time because of its control aspect of it, with having blue and being able to get rid of a lot of things. And I will be doing that deck tech next week. And as far as the 10-pack booster bust this week, it's going to be a day late due to me having stuff to do this weekend. So with that being said, let's get to going over each card in this deck. So we have pretty much the namesake of the deck right here. Heartless Summoning, costs 1 black, 1 colorless. Creatures you control cost 2 colors less to cast. Creatures you control get -1/-1. So obvious implications of this card. Pretty much it ramps your creatures up, it minimizes them a little bit, but usually not enough to make a great impact on it. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to the creatures. Now we're running 17 creatures in this deck, most of which are artifact creatures, and I have a little bit of a tech in the land and things like that that we'll just go into this later on. Now, of course, we have the 4 Solemn Simulacrum, we have 4 Phyrexian Metamorph, 2 Bloodkiff Demon, 2 Steel Hellkite, 1 Wormcoil Engine, 2 Runescarred Demon, and 2 Sphinx of Unthune. Now, the Solemn Simulacrums, if you don't know what it is, it costs 4 colorless. It's a 2/2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may search your land for a basic land card, or search your deck for a basic land card, put that card in your battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. When he dies, you draw a card. Great chump blocker, especially if you get Heartless Summoning out. He only costs 2 colorless. He goes down to a 1/1. You get yourself a land and a card. So, pretty sweet. Works real well with Phyrexian Metamorph, and gets the job done early game. Now, moving on to the Metamorph. He costs 1 Phyrexian blue, 3 colorless. You may have him enter the battlefield as a copy of a target artifact or creature, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Real good when you can copy a black creature card, because then it becomes a black and an artifact, and it gets real hard to kill if you have anything like a Doomblade or Go for a Throat. Anything outside of that, kind of easy. I mean, you got Oblivion Rings and things like that, but that's, it goes without saying, it's all creatures that get affected by that kind of thing. So then we got the 2 Bloodgift Demon. A lot of people don't use this in their deck. A lot of people don't use him at all. I think he's great. I was a big fan of Phyrexian Arena whenever it came out. Except this guy, for 5 mana, 5/4 flyer, and basically instead of how Phyrexian Arena met, is that you couldn't choose the target player that drew the card. This one you can, so if you get low on life, you can just kind of give him a card even though you really don't want that to happen, but if it comes to it, it's always an option. So if you get Heartless Summoning out, this guy comes out at 3 mana, which was the 2 black and 1 colorless, the same cost that Phyrexian Arena was, except he's going to be a 4/3 flyer when he comes out, so pretty beastie there. Moving on to one of the tech creatures, we got 2 Steel Hellkite. For 6 colorless, he is a 5/5 flyer. Whenever you could pay 2 colorless and he gets +1/+0 until end of turn, or you could pay X into it and he destroys all non-land permanents with converted mana cost X, whose controller was dealt damage this turn, and you can only activate it once per turn. This guy kills token decks. If you can get him out and swing, and he goes, unshaken, he'll just wreck token decks altogether. Also takes care of things like swords, Mirran Crusaders, anything like that, that the rest of the deck would have a hard time dealing with. Now we come to the Solemn Wormcoil Engine here. Foil Actual Scars 2, no promo. Traded a foil M12 Grave Titan to get this guy and a regular Grave Titan. So it's a pretty good trade all around. We all know what he does, so really don't need to go over him too much. Now coming over to the most feared part of the deck, Runescarred Demon. Now, first glance, this guy is known as a, bargain bin rare. He costs 7. He's a 6/6 flyer. Whenever he enters the battlefield, you search your library for a card, put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. He's essentially a Diabolic Tutor on wheels. However, coupled with Heartless Summoning and Phyrexian Metamorph, you just copy him, go search for more copies of Metamorph or more Runescarred Demons or whatever answer you need to either clean up the board and swing the game in your favor. So, really good card. And also, Sphinx of Umthun, 7 for a 5/6 flyer. Whenever he enters the battlefield, reveal the top card of your library, or the top 5 of your library. The opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, put 1 pile in your hand and the other in your graveyard. If you don't know what really that's from, that's Factor Fiction. And Factor Fiction costs 3 colorless and a blue, and it did that exact same thing, except now you get in a creature. So M12 really made creatures that did things other cards did way back when. But it's all around good card. 7 mana is a little high, but Heartless Summoning takes care of that. Moving down here, we got 3 Ponder. This helps set up a Heartless Summoning early game. I did have Forbidden Alchemies and Think Twice's in here. However, I felt that stacking the 3 cards of your library was better than just drawing 1 and putting the rest in the graveyard. So, works out pretty well. Now, we have 4 Mana Leak. Don't really need to explain that. It's a blue deck. Come on. And, of course, the Heartless Summoning. And then for the kill suite, we got 2 Doomblade, 1 Go for the Throat, and 2 Black Sun Zenith. Now, the Doomblade and the Go for the Throat, that's going to be a toss-up. I might change those out with Tragic Slip, depending on the meta games I'm about to find out what are. But, Doomblade gets rid of Artifact, Go for Throat gets rid of black creatures, non-artifact. That might change depending on how the meta looks. A lot of people back before Dark Ascension came out weren't using too much black and more were using Artifact with Tezzeret decks, things like that. Got rid of a lot more, gets rid of Wormcoil Engine, things like that, but that's not the case so much anymore. So these might switch around a little bit. Whenever I make a sideboard for it, I might just do a sideboard deck tech for the decks that I make on a separate note. So Black Sun Zenith, pretty much self-explanatory, gets rid of tokens, pros, hexes, hexproofs. So, that card's all around beastie. Now on to the tech of the deck. We got 1 Elixir of Immortality that used to be 1 Forbidden Alchemy. However, I found that a lot of the times the way that this deck works is you move through your library really fast and you end up running out of cards really quickly. This card helps you get back in there. If you start running out of cards real quick when you're starting copying the Metamorph and the Runescarred Demon combo, you just grab one of these, throw them down on the ground, pop it, gain yourself some life, and take all your graveyard and put it back in your library. Real good card. I found it playtests very well, and it saves you a lot from red deck wins and things like that. So now we have 2 Sever the Bloodline. The reason I call this tech and not removal, it is removal in its essence. It costs 3 colorless, 1 black. Exile target creature and all other creatures that share the same name with that creature. Costs 7 to flashback. Real nice to have this card when you're using Sphinx of Uthun. You're already around 7 mana, so you can flash it back if it hits the grave. But it's really, really good at removing tokens. And also really, really good at removing Wormcoil Engine so it doesn't break into 2. So this card is, in my opinion, going to increase in price when when token decks become more prevalent. But right now he's sitting nice, so I would grab as much of those up as you can. It's a really nice card. Now moving on to the land, we're running 24 land.